Hello? Hello? It is what it is. Baby, my shit then. Brittany Renner.
Brittany Renner, you need some help, baby girl.
So what happens when you have a woman that was raised in the age of social media? You give her a baby with a man that has a $48 million contract, and then you put her in front of a microphone. You get Brittany Renner. Remember back in the day, the late great Tupac had a song, All Eyes on Me. That was a jam. That's still my jam. I love that song. But the point I'm getting at is, going back to Brittany Renner, she likes attention. Now, as I was watching this, shouts out to MTR. He covers a lot of different videos, and I use his content a lot to give you the psychological aspects. So shouts out to MTR. Go check out his channel. But he was breaking down an interview with Brittany Renner. It seems like she was having a psychological episode. And I saw people saying, is she bipolar? She's having a crazy episode, manic panic attack. And I'm like, not quite. That looks like something else. Now, you may not be familiar with this disorder. It's not as popular as, say, the schizophrenia, the bipolar, or anxiety, depression, things of that nature. But I'm gonna talk about histrionic personality disorder. Now, if you don't know what that means, that's fine. Now, to give you some more insight on what histrionic personality disorder is, it can be categorized by the American Psychiatric Association, or the APA, as a personality disorder that's characterized by a pattern of excessive attention seeking, usually beginning in early adulthood, inappropriate seduction, excessive desire for approval. People that are diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder are typically very lively, dramatic, they're enthusiastic, extroverted, and flirtatious. So before we even get into it, does this not already sound kind of like
Brittany Renner?
Now, when we talk about diagnosis, it's typically looking at a certain amount of symptoms that are presented. Now, that could be very subjective. And like I mentioned, this is not a clinical diagnosis that she has this, but let's see what the traits line up. Now, there's 8 different symptoms that you want to see when you're looking at histrionic personality disorder, and they need to meet 5 of the criteria. Now, the thing is, since this is subjective, we're going to have to make sense of it. So I want you to follow along with me, give a check when you think it is in line with what we see. I'm going to give you my perspective on it, but I want you to see what you think at home and leave your comments below, and maybe you have something better than what I said.
Without further ado.
So let's start off with the first one. Now, they're uncomfortable in situations in which he or she is not the center of attention. Just the simple fact that she does a lot of podcasts, she's always trying to be in the media, she posts a lot, that right there can be it. But let's look further in the clip that I'm going to present here. They asked her about PJ Washington, who's the father of her son, and she said about 2 words about him before immediately talking about her negative perceived experience of pregnancy.
PJ just got an amazing contract. How does that make you feel as a woman knowing that's your baby father? What is your first view on that?
Whatever that contract looks like, that's what it looks like. And I didn't have a child. You know, I had a 2nd degree tear. You know what that looks like?
That's fine if she experienced pregnancy and it was hard. Obviously, I can't understand that, but she immediately took it away from the question about PJ Washington and made it about her. You can even see her looking uncomfortable, even messing around with a makeup brush, and it seemed that she was at unease when talking about it. Even MTR talked about himself that she took the conversation away from the main question asked.
But if you pay attention to the psychology of what just happened, she completely deflected from the PJ Washington $50 million contract to making it about her.
So you can see how she didn't feel good, one, not being the center of attention, and then she immediately had to bring it back to herself. And even in the sense of she was talking about the pregnancy, like I said, that's something I can't really talk on, but she took it even to an almost sexual way of talking about the pregnancy. Like she referred to her lady parts as something more vulgar than the clinical or medical definition of how to say those parts. So this leads into our next symptom. So follow along. What do you find on that one? I say yes, definitely a check on the first one. So the next one, interaction with others is often characterized by inappropriate, sexually seductive, or provocative behavior. And throughout this whole video that I saw on MTR's channel, she exemplified this tremendously, but there were some key points. So there was one particular part I noticed where Charleston White, who's also on this interview, he shook her hand, and I guess she gripped it very tightly, and she said, "Oh, you're pretty strong, you got a grip." And she kind of hinted at, "Oh yeah, I do got a good grip," like in a sexual tone. It was very blatant that she meant it sexually.
Understand him?
Yes,
He
ma'am.
understand me, we want to understand each other.
Damn that hand
So
strong.
what's up?
I'm just happy.
Yeah, I got a good grip.
Yeah, I see. Shit, you strong. Yeah, shit. I can tell you play sports.
Ma'am.
So she right there shows that something inappropriate, like You wouldn't typically do that with someone, one, you don't know that well, and two, you don't even have that kind of dynamic with them. And remember, this is being recorded for the world to see. Millions of eyes will and definitely have seen this at this point. So there's no regard of, once again, that attention being brought to you, and especially in a negative, or in this case, sexual light. So that alone can show that she likes that attention in a sexual way that may come off in the wrong dynamic, especially when it was in an interview. So I definitely give her a check for that. So that's 2 so far. Now let's go into the next one. She displays rapidly shifting and shallow expression of emotions. So this is very blatant as well. You can see her at one point, she's kind of just talking, giving her spiel on what she's talking about, then gets belligerent, starts yelling at heavyweight boxer Shannon Briggs, a guy who's about 6'4", 260 pounds, and she goes off on him. Then she kind of calms down again. There's another part where she's kind of being jokingly, and then she snaps and jokes again. So she's always shifting her emotions.
Get
Get it, champ.
Back in my shit then.
Come at the room,
It
guys.
is what it is.
Everybody cool, guys. Everybody cool.
Brittany Renner, we fuck with her.
She's not showing very much control in the moment about herself. So she definitely checks off this. And once again, saying shallow, meaning they're not very deep or sustained emotions. This is not something she really cares about. She just typically wants to exemplify said emotion, which is not good control, especially as an adult. That's a problem. When we're talking about disorders, this is a disclaimer that it's not her overall, what she is. But if you piece together all the interviews, you can see this behavior consistently, and getting to the point as she's doing this in a way where this does impede with day-to-day function. That's what it's really about. Everyone has moments when they might say something maybe inappropriate or out of line, but the point is, how much does it affect your day-to-day life, and how much does it hinder you from doing things you need to do? So she definitely gets a check for that one. So she consistently uses physical appearance to draw attention to herself. So the outfit she's wearing, people may say, oh, let her wear what she wants, fine. But we do have to be honest that there are outfits that are more revealing, or they show your body more, and they do demand attention. That's just what it is. And on this podcast itself, she's dressed in that kind of attention-seeking dress attire, and she made a career about her being like a model or IG model, whatever you want to call it, a vixen. So she definitely checks that box, using her physical appearance or attractiveness, how she dresses to get attention. Let's be real. You don't get celebrities, you don't get ballers, you don't get a pro NBA player by dressing modestly a lot of the time. So you definitely check that. So the next one has a stylist speech that is excessively impressionistic and lacking in detail. So what this means is that when she talks, what she says doesn't really give full context or reasoning of what she's talking about. It's very shallow in what the depth of the conversation is, because there's an example that she's trying to say how she felt a certain type of way. You don't understand what I've been through. And she's trying to get the sympathy from people, or even empathy from people, but she didn't describe what she actually went through.
At the end of the day, nobody knows what I went through. Nobody knows what I'm going through.
If you really want people to feel where you're coming from, you gotta give the vulnerability. So if she wants people to open up or feel vulnerable or even pity her maybe, but she's not really giving them much to work with. And she probably could get that from a lot of people, because people like, pitying people for things like that, but she didn't say anything. So this is definitely a check for this, because that impressionistic, you're just saying, hey, this is what I feel, take it or leave it, no more to it. Definitely checks that off. The next one, shows self-dramatization, theatrically an exaggerated expression of emotion.
Oh shit!
For all of
Is
us.
everybody fucking listening?
No.
That it's just about money. It's just whatever. It's the highest bidder.
That's the easy one. Definitely check that one off. But in the video, you see her voices. She's giving a lot of high pitch, like mimicky voices, childlike. She starts screaming when she doesn't like what she hears. She throws objects at people. She's yelling. She's being very belligerent, very violent in her speech or talk. And she even gets physical with it. So she definitely dramatizes and being over the top. Yes, if you got to make a point, cool, that's fine. But if you really have to push it home by doing things that are not necessary, being extra, as most people will call it, then that's a problem. That's not how people communicate in a real social situation. And you really don't get far with that. Maybe it gets clicks and views, but it definitely doesn't get you where you need to be. And outside of a podcast context, if she does this behavior, most people are going to be turned away, because a lot of times with histrionic personality disorder, they're very sociable. They can communicate but they do it in a way where it's demeaning to other people. It doesn't make them feel welcome because they got to make it about themselves. But it's to the point, like say narcissistic personality disorder. It's not necessarily just look at me because I'm the best. There could be hints of that in there, but it's more so look at me because I need that to feel better. Can you not see this with Brittany Renner? I think so, most definitely. So definitely check her for that one. So the next one we have is suggestible or easily influenced by others or circumstances. So this is a perfect one. She wrote a book, like a video vixen type of book of this is my life, dating celebrities, ballers. And it was kind of in the essence of Karen Steffens. So that's a woman who's known for very similar traits in the early 2000s. They say she's the more recent version of Karen Steffens. But basically, she definitely has influence to keep up with the times. So if someone who's impressionable or they're suggestible or influenced by others, they're going to just follow the trends. They're going to do what's hot right now, and it feels good. They have, a lot of sense of instant gratification. They can't wait, and they have to go with the flow, and that's a problem. Because she's talked on other podcasts about how going with the flow, doing what felt good, giving herself up to so many men, it felt bad now, but looking back, it's like hindsight's 2020. But in the moment, she just was doing what felt good, what everyone else is doing. That was the common thing in college, is do what you want and deal with the consequences later. So she definitely gets a check for that one. So the last one, she considers relationships to be more intimate than they actually are. So this one, you can kind of say a little bit in the video you might have seen. There was times she was jumping on Charleston White being suggestive sexually. You can even see that, with the water, talking about, being wet.
Isn't that Miss Ma'am?
No.
Wait a minute. I did nothing for that. Wait a minute.
So we can see how it's taking that dynamic that really wasn't a sexual or intimate one, but taking it further. So that's not a full extent. So let's go further. So looking at just history of dating, I mentioned like with the book and all that, she dated a lot of famous guys. Now, a lot of times when you're dealing with famous guys, athletes, celebrities, rappers, actors, things of that nature, there's a lot of superficial things going on. It's not saying you can't have a deep connection with these celebrities, but these men typically just want what's easy. And since they have so many women throwing themselves at them, they're going to say or do, sometimes they don't even do that much, to get what they want sexually. That's just what it is. Now, given her idea, she probably took that as, this is going to be my man, we're going to fall in love. Maybe deep down in her head, she thought that was going to happen with PJ Washington or even other men she's dated in the past. And this is a problem because if you think automatically that if a guy gives you attention, whether it's slight attention, romantic attention, sexual attention, or just being nice, you take it as he wants me. And I can give an anecdote from my own life. I actually had a client when I used to be a personal trainer way back in the day, and she definitely exemplified a lot of these symptoms. But she was going through a lot with her relationships, her family. And then one day she took it out on me, as in I didn't show her attention. And it turns out deep down she liked me. She confessed this to me. Now it makes sense. And I was actually studying my doctorate at that time. So it's coincidence that I was learning this disorder while this was happening. But basically she took my trainer-client relationship, me just being nice, counting the reps and all that stuff. I did that with everyone in the training group. But she took it way more than it actually was. And when I showed attention to other girls in the group, she got jealous and stormed out and took it out on me, left. And then her mom ended up calling me. That was just a crazy scenario, but you can see, going back to Brittany Renner, maybe that happened to her. Like I said, this is all speculation. So number 8, I'm not going to give to her because that's harder to speculate. But 7, I found 7 different symptoms, traits that she exemplified of histrionic personality disorder. So if you've been following along, how many do you have? Did you have at least 5? Did you see all of them? Did you have at least 2? I know you saw some. So like I said, this is not meant to be a diagnosis. I don't know what's going on with her personally. I don't see her every day, so I can't make that call. But it was just an interesting take. And Mediocre even said it in like, she needs help, and that's fine. I'm obviously an advocate of mental health and things of that nature. But when we look at it, we got to stop giving these people this type of attention because like I said, people mention her being drunk, but even without alcohol, if there was alcohol involved, I get that. But even without it, she shows a lot of these traits. So that's something to consider. So yeah, all in all, this is an interesting video. Mediocre tutorials and reviews. Go check out his channel. He did a great job. I love covering his videos from the psychological perspective. So if you enjoyed this, make sure you like, comment, subscribe to my channel. And always, guys, get your mind right.